Well, welcome back to Thoughts While Thinking. We're in the midst of the longest, saddest, and most excruciating, unsatisfying I told you so in the history of the world. And it's all to do with the United Nations. I'm not sure that I'm rearranging my prejudices today. I may just be expounding on them even more. But this climate change and Ukraine have a lot to do with everything that's going on today. Well, old James says that I might be rearranging them, but I just probably stand with the old ones I've always had. The government, the globalists require the war with Russia, and they've been working on this project for a long time. And what they're doing is they're just setting up, and it's part of the global plan uh, build, to promote and get the whole world, the whole earth, behind one group that's invading another country. And they got all the news, and every time you turn around, everywhere you look, you got something about the Russian war and how all the countries of the world are getting in behind stopping Russia. So that's a part of the overall plan of the conspiracies. And you look at natural oil and gas. They said, well, we got to get rid of those fossil fuels and stuff to save the planet. Well, do you ever stop and think about what all it comes out of that gas and oil? Man, we wouldn't even have a space program without that oil products. Uh, and it is a basis of about 50% of our economy. I don't know that for sure, but I mean it's a whole bunch because everything from pots and pans to your underwear is made out of some part of the oil. And it's all about save the world, get rid of those fossil fuels. Well, those fossil fuels, they do a little bit of damage to the environment, but the environment recovers. Uh, and when you globalize all the world and you get rid of that, all that oil and gas and stuff, and try to live under that renewable energy, electric cars and stuff. Well, those things cost a lot of the environment. You know, that lithium battery in those cars, they cost about $1,000 to get rid of, and they weigh about 1,000 pounds. I think I misstated that. I think that's $1,000 times 10. uh, and then you look at what it takes to get that lithium out. I mean, the oil and gas don't do much more damage than that. That's a pretty sad looking picture right there, even though they make it look pretty. And then you got these ugly high-powered lines going running across the country everywhere in the direction to get something to plug into and that electricity. Now, I'm not against electricity. I love electricity, but it has its place. And that fossil fuels, they're generating that electricity, and and we use it to light it up and do a lot of good things for this country and our life and make our life better. And I'm all for electricity, so don't get me wrong that I'm against electricity. I'm just against getting rid of fossil fuels because they're the one that provides all this energy. The whole world revolves around fossil fuels, uh, and whatever wind damaging, wind charging, and solar panels you can get, they can't match natural gas and oil. And so the brainwashing goes on. We just stick our head down in that old deep washing machine and let her rip. Uh, and you know, you got to understand that everything you see on TV is a scripted performance with the purpose of shaping your world to view a benefit of powerful interest that's running the show. And you know, the super rich, they benefit great under socialism. The rest of us, you know, we got to eat with the pigs because that's all there is out there. And all of this is being perpetrated and sent down to your throat by the mass media. And all the mass media, you know, the storyline on one is the same storyline on the other. They just I think some way or another they just get together and early in the morning and say, all right, this is our storyline. This is how we're going to reshape the world today. And the Facebook and Twitter is all in there with it in that big tech, and we're just become a brainwashed generation. And Facebook is washing your brain, the global media, and it's sitting there brainwashing our kids. They don't know which way is up. You know, school's supposed to teach you to think, but all these things they're teaching the kids right now is just how to push a button and take orders. You know, you got to think about that brainwashing. Well, once upon a time, that mind control was a little bit of hypnosis. Now then, we got mind control through Twitter, and the whole world is under that thing. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, just think about CNN on that Minnesota thing where the Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all those were writing and crashing through the stores and dragging out those 50-inch TVs. He said, I want to be clear about this. Sure, there's some indiscriminate shelling and incursion, but mostly peaceful. And they said that about Russia. They said that about Ukraine. Well, there ain't nothing about that kind of stuff that's peaceful. But they're telling you it is, and you're sitting there gobbling it up. And it's just like that old grinder shredder just shred your mind and buy into all that world order. And you know, President Trump, he might not have been the most popular guy with everybody in the whole world, but he had a right to speak his opinion. And Twitter and Facebook and all the big stuff cut him off to where he didn't have a voice. And what kind of deal is that? What kind of support of the Constitution? All of us were sworn on taking our oath about supporting the Constitution and defending it, but nobody's doing it now. And all of this is coming out of Washington. It's just a deep faucet right through your brain there. And it's brought to you through the pipeline of that mass media and globalization. And folks, if you want to look at what the globalization means to you, there ain't nothing local anymore. I mean, you don't have nothing local. All your freedoms of liberties and things are issued out by the big world government. And we just sit there and draw that stuff and let it sink into our head. And we just got to do something about that because the socialism and world globalism is all gobbling up the free world. And Russia is just slipping in over Ukraine, and Putin is sitting there cheering his troops on, and we've got the propaganda going, just a brainwashing. We're just a brainwashing generation. And it looks like a David and Goliath here. I'm just hoping that David's still got his rock because Goliath is coming on really strong. But those Ukrainians, they're doing a good job holding off. And Putin, through the mass media and stuff, now taking over the whole world is against him right now. And so they're playing his little song under globalization. And so we have one nation and one world under control. And they just keep, they picked on Ukraine to do this, and they're just destroying that poor little old country. They're just, but those people in Ukraine, they ain't giving up. They're just putting that guerrilla warfare out there, and government issued them all guns that they could, and they did a little bit of training, and the grandmas and the kids and everybody is sitting there, and they're shooting back, and the rest of the world is sitting there jumping on old Putin and doing a lot of talking stuff. And you got to remember that this globalization and communism and socialism only benefits the super rich. The rest of us just don't get anything out of that. And Ukraine, they're just pushing their way through back. And old Thomas Paine, he said, the greatest tyrannies are always perpetrated under the name of the most noblest cause. Well, global warming and freeing the government, world government under that, and getting rid of all that toxic stuff of petroleum. And old Putin, he's just sitting there where he ain't happy with how all that was working. But while we're all occupied over here with Ukraine, well, China's getting ready to take over Taiwan. Well, Taiwan is being hammered by all of the big national corporations and super rich because they like that, because that means money in their pocket. And if Taiwan comes down, that means that China has all of the high-tech capabilities of production, and the rest of the world is going to be at their mercy. And you know the way it was Republicans and the Democrats, but right now it is the national right and the globalist left. I don't know how else to put it. And the old world order is just right up on us. I don't know whether we can come back from it or not. And in the world of propaganda, the truth is always a conspiracy. Well, I think that I must be a conspiracy under that little deal here. And we got the midterm elections coming up here this year in November, and we got to remember the purpose of the Constitution of the United States is to limit the power of government and not the power of the people. And we got to remember also, like old Einstein, I really like that guy. he had lots of good wisdom to point out there. And he says that there are only two ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle, and the other is that everything is a miracle. And I think everything is a miracle because if it wasn't for a miracle, I probably even wouldn't be here, some of the stuff I've done. And you got to remember, too, that the Second Amendment does not grant us the right to bear arms. The Second Amendment denies the government the authority to infringe on our right to bear arms. Now, think about that. Put that in there if you can still think a little bit and it's not a product of modern education. And William James, I'm not really rearranging my prejudice. I'm just out there pouncing on top of them, I think. And so we got to think for ourselves. Or if we don't think for ourselves, the media will think for us. And you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to see the stupidity out there. All you need is two eyes and a pinch of common sense. And that's said by one of my guys that I really like, is Officer Parker. He had some pretty good things to say too. And there's nothing much more true than that. And the COVIS, it did its trick, and when it quit working to bring everybody under control, that's when Russia made her move. And, we don't really control our beliefs and thoughts. Our beliefs are forced upon us by our surroundings, and we're a product of all of that and everything. And the purpose of the Constitution, again, is to limit the government. Now, this brings up Charles Dickens, he's in 1862. In 1940, my history books had a different perspective of the Civil War than what you're being taught and have been taught since about 1950 or something like that. The history of that is that the North power people, production, and capitalism wanted to control the products of the South and take care of all of that, because they were manufacturers and stuff like that, and they wanted control to the South, and so they were going to take over. And the South was starting to, as the world was, started to release all these slaves and condemn slavery. And Robert E. Lee never owned any slaves, and General Grant, he owned some, and he didn't even release them till about a year after the Civil War was over. So you see how you get manipulated, because the North says, well, we got to make everybody in the world think that we're doing something really great by invading the South. We're going to free the slaves. And so we're still fighting the slave issue right now, because they sold it hook and everybody bit it hook, line, and sinker, and the historians rewrote history in the history books. And I challenge you to go back and find those 1940 history books and read this for yourself. And the Southerners, they were just defending their states' rights. That's what the war was about, was states' rights. And so anyway, it was about states' rights, but the history that you know now and how it's been bounced around is all about slavery. The South, the Confederate were just evil people because they had slaves. Well, I'm not far right. I'm just right so far. And that's my thoughts while thinking and rearranging my prejudices, and that's goodbye.